Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another movie review, aka After I Saw. This time it is going to be on here. This movie is directed by Robert Zemeckis and stars Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. Now, of course, if that trio sounds familiar, it's because they were a part of one of Robert Zemeckis' all-time greatest and one of his most iconic films, Forrest Gump. So they decided to reunite, though Tom Hanks was in other properties of Robert Zemeckis has made after that, of course. But the whole trio is back for another movie. And no, it has no relations to this film, because if it did, then Robin Wright's character from this movie would have still been alive. But anyways, with here, we follow a family who grew up in this home, and we see their lifestyle in this very one room. And what I mean by that is that this entire movie takes place in just one setting, one entire room of this house, and we see their lifestyle as they grow up, where Tom Hanks and Robin Wright eventually grow a family together, as throughout a lot of the film, they show them de-aging, which, I won't lie, actually does look kind of impressive. When it comes to de-aging effects in movies, they are usually never impressive and just look completely cheap. Now, after the god-awful live-action Disney Pinocchio movie Robert Zemeckis made, he knew that he had to do something to make up for that. That movie was so bad it won a Razzie for Worst Remake, Spin-off, or Sequel, or whatever, while the good Pinocchio movie that came out that same year won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film. But for this movie, he's adapting it from a book. And, Robert Zemeckis, he definitely loves to get creative when it comes to his drama-themed films, and Forrest Gump is definitely no exception. So, seeing him come back for another film with, Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, yeah, it would seem like he would have another winner on his hand. But, of course, this movie has not been making big numbers at the box office opening weekend. It only made number 3. While, of course, it got beat out by Venom and Smile 2. So, yeah, that should say something, and I could kind of see why, because not many people have been talking about it. Probably why I almost skipped this movie. I mean, I wanted to see it. I didn't see a trailer, but seeing that Tom Hanks and Robin Wright would be in another Robert Zemeckis film seemed like it would have some promise. But despite the fact that, the concept alone, with the fact that it's set in just one room, which I wasn't actually expecting, but I actually found it to be very impressive. The way that they just have this entire thing, this 1 hour and 44 minute long film, just in one setting. I thought that alone felt very unique, and a lot of the times it does. But unfortunately, it doesn't save the fact I didn't think this movie was all that memorable. While alone, it does seem unique, but my problem is, despite the fact that the main focus is on one of these families, families, because there are multiple different ones that appear, and hell, sometimes it'll cut to a Native American family. Well, not really a family, because sometimes the focus is on just a couple, then it cuts to this one Native American, but I don't know, sometimes I feel like the film just kind of gets a bit messy, and it's kind of hard for me to stay focused, especially when it cuts to, different transitions. Like, it'll show, different pictures of images that will pop up when it comes to, cutting to the next scene, which, I won't lie, also felt kind of unique, but the fact that it happens throughout the entire film kind of got a little bit old, and it was just hard for me to kind of keep up with what was going on, because, while of course it tries getting you to connect, especially with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright's family, it's just really hard to fully keep up with what's going on, because I feel like that's the family that you're going to be caring about the most, or what it wants you to care about the most. And while Robin Wright and Tom Hanks, they are great in the movie, I definitely don't think their chemistry works as well in this film as it did in Forrest Gump, because I thought the way it was handled there truly felt romantic and truly felt like it earned, our love for the couple, and how it was truly tragic how it had to end with Robin Wright's death in that film. Her character, obviously she's still alive, but yeah, I feel like, when it happens here, I feel like that chemistry just doesn't work as well. Sure, we do see them getting married, and we do see them, growing up, but I don't know, there was just something missing. I just felt like, because, Forrest Gump was such a unique character. The fact that he's not really a smart man, but he's a man that, we never treated as an idiot because of how good Tom Hanks was performing him. But because right here, I feel like it's more like what we would see in, I'm not exactly sure how to put it, but I feel like this is one of those types of films that, just sounds really good on paper, but, when it's put into, like, of course, good on paper because this is based off a book, but I feel like sometimes when going into a big screen adaptation, I just feel like there are some times where, the book might always seem better. I haven't read the book myself, but I just feel like, maybe the movie should have been longer. But even with its hour and 44-minute runtime, I do feel like, the movie just dragged on way too long. And sometimes I feel like there are moments in the film that kind of feel forced. Like, there are multiple scenes of people dying. Like, there's this one man that dies from laughing too hard at a joke, and the woman blames herself because she told the joke. But I feel like the random deaths, I just didn't really felt like I connected with as much or felt bad for enough because I didn't really know the characters that much. But, despite the fact that I am being somewhat negative on the film and I didn't really care for it all that much, there are aspects to the movie that I do think work. Like, for example, I liked the way it ended. I thought the ending was pretty sweet. And I do think there are some moments that can be, that can be pretty touching. But I just felt like with how emotional this film does try to get, I don't really feel like I connected with it as much because sometimes it just felt a little too forced. And I just feel like because, we don't connect with the characters as much, I think it's just due to the fact that it's in one specific setting and, we don't see people go anywhere else. So it does cut to, the outside part of this British area, like with a bunch of kids, which I don't really... Sometimes the editing can be unique, but sometimes it can be a bit messy because it doesn't really fully explain. Like, I felt like it should have explained, like, why it's cutting to these... I'm sure it's explained best in the book, but because it's a movie and, we're supposed to, get our own little hints of what's going on, I don't know. In the end, guys, here, I don't really have a whole lot to say, though. This video has been going on longer than I anticipated it to be, but... it just has me wondering what has been going on with this man's career. I mean, he hasn't really made a truly great film in quite some time, or a truly memorable one. In terms of his last movie that I thought was actually really good and actually pretty underrated is The Walk. I thought this was a very unique film. And the fact that this movie was based on a true event, and I actually thought this movie was actually kind of intense, too. Like, I really think people should have talked about this movie more when it was released, but I really enjoyed this film, and it's probably Robert Zemeckis' last most memorable film in my opinion, because after that he really hasn't made that many memorable films since. I do think it's better than live action Pinocchio, but it's really not saying much. I feel like, to truly connect with this movie, I guess it should be, for people who remember, growing up in their old home and just, having nostalgia for their own home. So, yeah, I can see that working for some people, but for someone who has just been who's just been renting homes or living in rental homes throughout his entire life, then again, my grandma has a house that, I've stayed in so many times, and so, okay, so I do kind of have a house that I've, grew up in, but that's a personal story of mine, but... Yeah, bottom line is, I don't really feel like I'm going to remember much from this movie afterwards because I just feel like it could have been so much more. It has a unique concept alone. It has a unique position just wasted just due to the fact that I didn't really connect with a whole lot. And that's sad because, I really wanted to, but there are often times where I wasn't too happy to be what the title says. I just want to lay the ground rule. I did not hate the movie. I just thought it was very disappointing, and I feel like it's one of those Oscar bait films that they're just going to completely ignore, and the fact that it hasn't been doing so well, yeah, I feel like that will definitely be real when we do get, the announcements for this year's Academy Awards, but, or next year's. But anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.